Hello and welcome back. We're just going to have the last interview before we leave you for tonight with John Jund, our second place finisher. So, choosing to play Jund today, then getting the name John Jund, what do you think of Jund's place in the current format at the moment?
I think the current format was shaken quite a bit.
Yeah.
After the recent bannings, and coincidentally the Pro Tour that is in this weekend is modern. So I feel like the metagame has a lot to be redefined after these bannings and consequently after the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
So let's say I make some sort of a safe option to bring Jund to the table. Although even before the bannings in general, in most of my modern events, I'm used to play a black-green X variation, either Abzan or Jund. Currently, I felt for this moment that I wanted to have a more proactive game plan, so I decided to bring Jund.
Yeah.
And the reason for Jund is that it's a 50-50% deck, so you can't go very wrong. Usually, when the format is very undefined, in my opinion, it's okay to have a safe option and just go for it. And
yeah, well, looking at the decks that have been played today, well, how do you think your Jund fares up against? Well, we've got 4 Jund decks, 3 Merfolk, 2 Affinity, and then just quite a varied selection. How do you think you fare up against the
there are various one-offs, it seems, as well.
Yeah.
Actually, only one burn is a bit unexpected for me. I expected more burn following the twin ban and maybe Tron becoming more popular, and actually there is no Tron.
Yeah, that was a surprise. No Tron or Eldrazi decks, both of which I thought we'd see a fair bit of. You've faced down these Abzan company decks a fair bit. Were you expecting to see so much collected company today?
Not at all, and my sideboard was at least off by a few cards. After I see the meta after the conclusion of the day, I had at least 3 or 4 cards that were didn't get in for any matchup during the whole day. So definitely, if I had, but this is the nature of these fair decks, Jandy decks. The more you get prepared for the meta, the more you can adjust and make your deck more powerful and adjust it. But I have to say that this is not a meta I expected at all, so I was off by a few cards at least in the sideboard. Yeah,
well, we saw in the semi-finals your Scavenging Ooze as well as Kalitas, which seemed quite main deck cards, very good against the Abzan company deck. We seemed to put in a lot of work against Laura in the semi-finals.
Well, Scavenging Ooze is the best card against felt like it's the best card.
Yeah, and the Kalitas, I mean, that's a new card from Oath of the Gatewatch. What made you decide to put that in the deck today?
First of all, as you say, it's a new card, so it's a card that has potential after it was spoiled or it was tested even in standard. So it's definitely an interesting option to at least try in the early stages when it's after it's released. I don't think it's yet the correct time to make the verdict whether it's a main deck worthy card or a sideboard maybe. But it's definitely interesting to try it, and I have mixed feelings about the card. It was very matchup dependent, I have to say.
Yeah. It was interesting to see some of the selections. Obviously, Jund, you can usually make space for a couple of one-offs. Anything you'd change from your list going in the future?
Yeah, as I said about Kalita, since I had mixed feelings and they were very matchup dependent, I think his position would be in the sideboard going forward. However, it's also meta dependent. I can see if you expect similar metas, for example, with lots of collected company decks, you can even still main deck it. It's like it's one of the really strong cards. Not as strong as Scavenging Ooze, but it's almost as good.
So you finished first in the Swiss. How do you think getting the play draw? How do you think that affected your chances in the top 8 in especially the format modern?
Yeah, my top 8 matches were against the Jund Mirror in the quarterfinals, and then against 2 collected company decks, as we saw. So in the Jund Mirror, it's a bit complicated. Although I think it's a clear advantage to be on the play, obviously, especially if you have the discarded into a good threat, turn 2 threat, either Dark Confidant or Tarmogoyf. So I think being on the play on the Jund is quite significant, although not as significant as other matchups, like against hyper-aggressive decks, where of course being on the play is a huge advantage. But I think in the semi-finals and the finals against the collected company decks, probably you are slightly. I mean, I would still choose to play, but especially because they have some explosive turns with their mana creatures into either kitchen things or cast turn 3 collected company.
Yeah.
So I would still, of course, choose to be on the play. Although I don't think the impact is as high as in other matchups.
Yeah. So looking forward, do you think you're gonna continue with how you're running it so far? So say you had won and you had got the chance to play get the token of your choice. What token would you have chosen?
I hadn't thought about it, but after a little while, maybe a monk token would be quite interesting.
Yeah,
I think it would be nice.
Prowess from Monetary Mentor. Okay.
I will just copy Jacob Wilson, but
Yeah.
it seems like a nice idea.
All right. Thank you for playing today. Thank you everyone
You
for
are
watching.
welcome, guys. I hope we played some interesting games.
Just a bit of the crew from today at the back. Thank you to everyone involved, and hope
Thank
to
you for
see
organising
you
it.
again at our next Northern League event. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.